Moi, vous savez d'où je viens.
You know about my background. My parents, my ancestors were Jews who lived in Algeria. I specifically say in Algeria or from Algeria and not Algerians as fools say, because there was no Algeria before the arrival of the French. This land has always been someone's colony. Roman, Spanish, Arab and so on. My ancestors are Berbers, Jews from lands that no one called Algeria. That's how the French dubbed this country. They also marked its boundaries. I have witnessed the process of assimilation to French culture, and in detail, since it is about my family. I have seen it in the example of Algerian Jews, who first assimilated among the French of Algeria, to whom they did not originally belong, with Algerian Frenchmen, originally from France, from Alsace communards, to which they initially did not belong. They were closer to the Algerian Arabs who colonized them, and the Christian Berbers, who were also colonized and converted to Islam, than to the Algerian French. They assimilated among the Algerian French, joined France. I understood how this very subtle mechanism of assimilation works. Through morals, literature, history, when you perceive it as part of your own. Until his death, my father wrote down in a notebook the quotes of Victor Hugo, Chateaubriand, that he liked. From time to time, he remembered them, discussed them with me, you know. That's what assimilation means in France. My father spoke Arabic perfectly. He adored Arabic music, Arab Jewish music, Andalusi. Do you understand? I know how to move from one culture to another without abandoning the original one, but through the process of assimilation, becoming part of another, French, culture. And until 1989, I believed that the Muslim peoples of the Maghreb would follow the same path.
Why are you defending Marshal Pétain?
If you want, it's a matter of chance. Secondly, I think that the history of the Vichy regime is the foundation on which the guilt of the French is based. In the 1970s, the left came up with a process, as they did in all other European countries. This summer, I read a book about the Muslim past of Andalusia in Spain, and the process is the same everywhere. They choose periods of history when everything was not very good in the country, let's say far from brilliant, and they begin to put pressure on it to cause a sense of guilt among the people. The French, Spaniards of course, Germans, as well as the British, Americans and so on. This is a process of imposing a sense of guilt in order to prohibit peoples from defending their own identity and culture. With us, this is Vichy, as well as colonization, and so on. That is, I wanted to say that it was not the Vichy regime that unleashed what happened in the end, but the Germans. France under Vichy was occupied. The part that was under the rule of the regime was a free zone. France did what was possible. That's what I want to say. My goal is not to rehabilitate Marshal Pétain, as journalist Lee Salamé said, and now everyone is following her. That was never my goal, you know. I just wanted to emphasize the change that took place in the 1970s, and also to say that it's time to end with remorse and accusations, because this prevents France and French people from demanding themselves against the main thing, against the invasion from the south and Islamist subversion.
C'est plus la même chose aujourd'hui.
If earlier becoming a Frenchman meant, in a sense, securing your future, now everything seems to have changed. Perhaps this is due to the fact that history is dictated by the laws of demography, as stated in your book. At the same time, there are already more than 1.5 billion Chinese, 8 billion Muslims, and soon there will be 2 billion Africans. In this situation, it seems that the future is for them, no?
Vous avez tout à fait raison.
You are quite right calling on me to comply with the demographic rules that I have introduced. When France flourished and was the dominant power in Europe, it was called European China. In 1789 and 1800, there were 28 million French. In other words, the same number as there were inhabitants in the rest of Europe. For example, there were 8 million Britons, 28 million Russians. Today, it seems there are 150 million Russians. There should be 150 million of us today. And by the way, if the demographic growth of the 17th and 18th centuries in France continued, given the progress in science and medicine, medicine, there would be 100 million of us. Take Algeria. When the troops of Charles X entered Algeria in 1830, there were 2 million inhabitants. The French, as I told you, were 28 million. See what the difference is? Add technology to this and so on. I always use the following comparison as an example. In 1900, there were 400 million Europeans, 100 million Africans. Europe colonized Africa. Now, by 250, there will be 2 billion Africans and 500 million Europeans. Africa will colonize Europe. We need to know what we want. Do we accept this situation, saying to ourselves, France is a land of vast expanses, and everyone comes here with their own culture, as well as with their roots, their origins, and very quickly all this will turn into an enlarged copy of Lebanon. We see where this leads to. It will be Lebanon. This is our future if we don't do anything.
It could be Switzerland.
No, in Switzerland it's the same. They speak different languages, but that's the only difference. We are talking about European languages, German, Italian, French. We are talking about almost fraternal peoples. They fought a lot with each other, but so were the French, the British, the Germans. We are not talking about different civilizations, whereas in our case, a new civilization has appeared on our earth. This is a confrontation between two civilizations. The demographic situation is leading us to become an enlarged version of Lebanon. Politicians, and this is exactly what I am trying to suggest, need to understand what is happening in reality, instead of trying to smooth out the corners, as all politicians do, and offer solutions to end this problem. Why did all native Frenchmen and Frenchmen born in other European countries leave the suburbs? I know what a suburb is. I grew up there because representatives of another civilization live there, which has other sacred texts, a different family model. We are going to a confrontation, a clash. Political parties are dead. We need to understand this. All our political parties are dead. Today we are trying to make a good face with a bad game. I believe that Macron is not the first politician of the new era, but the last politician of the previous era.
Or he is the first politician of the new era, to which you belong.
He is an intermediate stage.
Your program is more ambitious than competitors' programs. You are going to fight the rule of law with Europe. I mean, you want to rebuild Europe on the basis of new values.
No, I don't have such ambitions. I don't want to fight the rule of law. I want to fight the fact that judges have taken hostage the rule of law in order to impose their own ideological view.
And you're not afraid of the reaction of civil society, because in 2017 it was by this civil society that the composition of the parliament was updated by 75%.
Yes, but Emmanuel Macron's civil society is not my civil society. I'll explain why. This is a question from the field of sociology. Emmanuel Macron's sociology is the one of big cities, metropolises, bourgeois bohemian society, people who consider globalization a blessing, who are delighted with immigration. Here's sociology, in general, of course, because there are always nuances, details, but Emmanuel Macron's sociology is like this, but this is not mine. Look at the opinion polls. It's always very interesting to analyse. My sociology, either the popular or the more affluent classes which are united by love for France, patriotism, French traditions, custom, lifestyle, history and so on.